Today we're going to take a look at how to round numbers, and we're going to hopefully be able to explain to you why this is important and to connect to future learning as we move forward. But hopefully by the end of this little tutorial, you'll be able to understand the different place values within a certain number, and we're going to learn this as we move forward, and then be able to round money values to a specific value. And we're going to take a look at that in terms of more money. This is something that I want you to kind of refer to as we start learning, and hopefully by the end of your learning, you'll understand where all these different value places are and give you guys an understanding of how to find this. This chart illustrates where the different values are at a specific point. So these are our ones, these are our tens and hundreds. So if I'm looking at this would be $872 if you want to think of it as money. And then you got your thousands, you got hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands, 1,000. Matches very similar to what we have here. And then if I had millions, you could go 10 million, 100 million, moving forward. And you could think of this as money. You could think of this as different units that you could see if you're looking at disk space for your thumb drive or your ability to store information on a computer. So what we're going to do is that's the whole numbers that we have, and these are the decimals. And you'll notice here that there's no ones. It starts at tenths. So these units kind of match up. All right, hundredths, 1,000ths, thousandths, and so on, 10,000ths. And the way this is reads is like, if I was just going to stop there, this would be 0.14. You can think of it as that, or you can think of this as 14 hundredths. And you might see that in terms of some people talk about time. You might think about split into different portions. But hopefully by the end of this, we'll be able to see, okay, can I find that specific spot? So if I go down through here, all right, place value is given is the value given to a place in which a digit appears in a numeral. So for example, if I'm looking at the numeral 0, all right, hopefully if I'm looking at this, I have to find my decimal place first. That's your key spot. All right. If it doesn't have a decimal place, then the decimal is at the end of the number. And then I can work backwards and I can count 1, tens, hundreds, thousands. Hey, that's 10,000s. All right. All right, I can say that's a 10,000ths place value. All right, and we should be able to write this out, or if we're using a Chromebook or a laptop or whatever, we can type it out, but we should be able to kind of identify those things. If I look at the fourth, well, I'm looking at the 4. Here's my 4. I can say that's the 100th spot. All right, because it's 2 spots after the decimal. Okay, so that's what we're going to kind of work at first. All right, so what it might be good is to keep this chart handy to be able to understand this, but hopefully we won't have to do this using our chart. Okay, so what I would like you to do is try answering these questions. So by using the chart and be able to write these spots. So I'm going to push pause now, and I want you to kind of go back and forth, and we'll come back and check our thinking with that. All right, so we're back now, and hopefully what you've noticed that is you can find those spots. So I'm going to try actually typing in some of these things on my computer. All right, I'm going Try that. So I can say this one is in the 10th spot because it is 2 spots left of the decimal. All right. This spot is 1, 2, 3. So there's hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000. That's the million spot. Okay. So always find the decimal. All right. This one is, there's the decimal, 1, 10th, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. All right. This one, I look at the place value. There it is. Oh, it's 1 spot to the right. This is the 10th spot. So any number that is to the right of the decimal will have this TH ending on it. And that's similar to all the things that we've done before. All right. This is the 1 spot, so it's 1 spot past the decimal. All right. And this one is 1, 10th, hundreds, thousands. All right. So that's what we're kind of working towards. Okay. So hopefully that's helped you a little bit. And hopefully when you practice that came up. All right. Rounding. So one of the reasons why we needed to understand place values is to be able to round. And we can use this step to be able to figure out how to round. So steps to consider when rounding to a given digit. So find the value of the digit you're rounding to. We're going to look at the value digit of the digit immediately to the right. Okay, so we're going to look 1 spot to the right. We're going to look that way. All right. If the value of this digit on the right is 5 or more, we're going to move it up by 1 value. If the value of the digit is 4 or less, we're going to keep it the same. All right. And then all the digits to the right of the rounded value now become 0. And there will be no zeros are needed at the end after we've passed the decimal. So these are the steps that we're going to kind of work towards and be able to kind of figure that out. All right. So here's some example. One of the things that we have to look at here is figure out where are we rounding to. All right. So if I'm looking at this example, I'm going to round to the nearest thousands. So which one is the nearest thousands? Well, we have to find the decimal and then count ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. So this is the number that we're going to look at. All right, that's step 1. Step 2 is we're going to look next door and say, is this number 5 or more or 4 or less? Hopefully you have said that it's 4 or less. So that means that this value is going to stay the same. Okay? And what will happen is the rest of these numbers are going to have zeros. Okay? So if we were looking at this and ask yourself, okay, if we were going to write this out or type this out, I could think of it as, all right, my 234, that's still going to be the same. All right. And all the rest here are going to be 0 because we've changed that. So 0, 0, 0, dot 0, 0. And once you become really good at this, you can say to yourself, you know what? I really don't need those decimals, and that's totally fine. All right. I can say that that's just 234 thousandths. All right. And sometimes I put a comma in there too, because that helps me to identify that these place values are in groups of 3. Okay. So now this reads 234,000. All right. So say if you were determining how many thousands of dollars you make, or how many kilometers are left on my car, I could say it's approximately 234,000 kilometers. That helps. All right. So let's do a couple more, and then hopefully that your thinking is going to make sense, and we will continue with that learning. Nearest million. So we're going to look at this. We're going to say, well, here's my decimal place, and then we're going to look at the millions. 1, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000. There's my million spot. All right, this is my million spot. If it's going to let me write in here. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look next door. All right. Well, is this number 5 or more, or 4 or less? This is 5 or more. All right. That means we're going to round up. All right. So what this becomes, this one is going to become a 9. All right. And then the rest of these values are going to be zeros. These are all going to be zeros. All right. So if I was going to type this into my document, hopefully when I get going here. All right. I could say that this is 9. I'm going to put commas in where those spaces are, but you can do. All right. That would be rounded to the nearest million. All right. So all those steps are important to understand. All right. All right. What I want to do is I'm going to push pause now. All right. So you can push pause. All right. And I want you to try these two and then come back to see what your thinking looks like on your page. All right. So hopefully you tried your thinking. All right. And if you checked your thinking, what should have happened is if you rounded this one to tens, the answer would have been 5, 3. Actually, this one's actually kind of tricky because if I'm looking at this, this is my 10 spot. All right. And I look next door to that 6. That 6 is 5 or more. So that 9 will become 10. So it's almost like saying this 5, 3, 9 actually becomes 5, 4, 0. So it's almost like saying that 39 rounds up to 40. Okay? So that's what would be my answer, right? After that 9 becomes 0, that 6 becomes 0. Now you can move up. Okay? If I'm looking at this guy, all right, I can ask myself, all right, where's the hundredths position? That is my hundredths position. All right, we're going to change that 8 to a 9, or we're going to leave it as an 8. We look next door. When we look next door, that 8 was going to turn to a 9 because this 5 it's 5 or greater next door, right? So this would become 0.49 down here. All right. So if I was typing out this number, all right, this would be 34835 dot or decimal 49. Okay. And there's many applications to these. And this, for example, this one, you could write this as money. All right. So sometimes when we round from money, all right, we're going to be rounding to 2 decimal places. All right. Here, up for this one's 5,400. Right? We could talk about this as tons of different units. And we're going to be practicing these things throughout. But we have to understand why we're doing this. Okay. All right. So that's kind of the end of the thinking. All right. So once you give the practice a go, see how that works, and then we can check to see what your understanding looks